Let me tell you a story about when I first started taking piano lessons. My parents actually bought me a piano on my 7th birthday as a birthday present. Now I realize it was a piano for the family, but at least it gave it an occasion. My older brother and my younger sister and I started lessons after having had the piano for maybe a couple of months. I really feel like that was a blessing that I didn't have a teacher from day one that I had the piano, because it gave my brother, my sister, and I a chance to just kind of mess around with the piano ourselves and form some minimal relationship with this instrument, because it was just us and the piano, us not knowing really anything about it, and us just finding out for ourselves little things about pitch, seeing how the piano looked. I don't remember. I was 7 years old, and I'm 76 now, so I don't remember exactly how it was. But I do know that by the time I actually had a teacher, I wasn't intimidated by just looking at the instrument. I just walk in, and all of a sudden there's this big thing with this 88 keys, and I don't know what it is. And I would encourage parents to not be concerned about giving a child lessons from day one that they have the instrument. Let them fool around with it for a while, and then start the lessons. Practice is very important. You know the phrase, practice makes perfect? Well, because we're human beings, perfection in that sense is sort of a loaded word. So getting as perfect as we can at the moment is something that we could strive for. That's not impossible. You don't want to spend all day practicing, because you are a human being and you have to live a life. I've heard of people practicing 4 and 5 hours a day. I think the most I ever practiced was 3 hours a day. Practicing every day, in the beginning, that's what I did. I practiced every day. Over time, I know in playing jazz, over time, because we're playing in the moment, after years and years go by, you start to get a feeling for what we might call mind over matter. And the reason it's important to get a sense of that concept is because what I found out later is that if I didn't practice, because I was so used to practicing every day, if I didn't practice, I felt worried, scared, and the fear is what made it difficult for me to have at least a decent performance. So the problem was I was depending on practicing in order to do the best that I could. So somewhere in there, there's a balance. You want to be able to practice, but you don't want it as a crutch. Sometimes you're in situations where you won't be able to practice. Now you're gonna sit there like this, biting your fingernails. No, you don't want to do that. So a certain period of my life during the time I was playing with Miles Davis, I never saw him practice, except the few seconds before he'd walk on the stage, he would go, play some kind of chromatic scale, and then kick off a really fast tune, and he was always burning, you know? Yes, he made some mistakes, but, you know, Miles Davis's mistakes were like golden gems, you know, that you give an arm for, because he was always reaching for more than what was easy. I wanted to say something about the idea of learning to play by ear and learning to play and learning to read. You can learn to play music either way, but there's some advantages to knowing how to read. And there's a misconception that learning how to read, and many people think that learning how to read kind of interferes with your soul, or interferes with your ability to be able to create your own thing. That's not true. Most of the best musicians I know how to read, but it's kind of cool to be able to look at a page of music and actually hear what the notes are in your head without having to actually play the notes. Saves a lot of time. Saves a lot of time. So Mrs. Whalum pretty much taught me basically how to read so I could execute the notes. She was my first teacher, Mrs. Whalum. But she didn't show me anything about dynamics. Now that's loud and soft, for example. Or after about maybe 2.5, 3 years, I got another teacher, Mrs. Jordan. And when I first went to Mrs. Jordan, she asked me to play something, so I had some music. I put up on the piano and played something. I think it was from the John Thompson basic piano book, which a lot of people start with that one. And I mean, even today, many people start with that John Thompson book. It had a song on there called Spinning Song. Let's see. I don't know if that was the key, but anyway, that was one of the songs that I played. Anyway, so Mrs. Jordan heard me play something, and she said, well, you read very well. She said, but your hands, what? She said, then she said, oh, let me play something for you. And she played a Chopin etude. The sound that she got out of the instrument was so beautiful. The touch that she had, the way she milked the notes. I mean, she would play some notes. Anyway, hearing that touch made all the difference in the world. I just listened to that and went, and I said, can you teach me to play like that? And Mrs. Jordan said, I can try it. Anyway, the idea of touch really touched me. It made a huge impression on me, and I always wanted to be able to play with the the kind of touch that will bring tears of joy or sadness or whatever, kind of touch that will go, touch your heart. I always wanted to have that. And whether you're playing something that sounds beautiful, or whether you're playing something that could sound really ugly. Big sound. The physicality of playing the instrument is important. And also, it's important to protect your body from possible injury over time. What I was told is the body should really be erect, not, slouched over or leaning one way or the other, and that there's usually not a lot of action of waving the elbows and shoulders, and because over time that can tire you out. It can put undue stress on the body. The point is to be relaxed and let the fingers do the work. These are the things that are really right next to resistance. There are times when you need more power that you have to, in order to get that power, move more than the fingers. Sometimes you might have to raise your wrist. I mean, I can play as loud as I can without the wrist, but if I put the wrist in there, I can get a lot more going. And in some cases, you might want to use the whole arm. Now that's power. But now I'm bending from the elbow. I'm not taking my whole body and doing that. It's really not necessary. You can do it for show if you want. It's up to you. But you try to use less of the physical movement of the parts beyond the fingers as you can. Only use what's necessary for what you're trying to execute. The fingers do a lot of the work.